Each of us has a choice about how we want to live our lives. Do we want to live fully awake and conscious? Or do we want to live in a cloud? Living in a cloud is definitely a lot easier and a lot more comfortable. This means that you simply don't see certain truths that are uncomfortable for you or inconvenient if you admit them. For example, let's say your mom or dad has a mental illness. And in that mental illness, this parent is really irrational sometimes and mistreats people because that's what mental illness does to you. You have 2 little kids and you want to go away for the weekend without bringing the kids. If you are awake and not living in a cloud, you know that you can't leave your kids with your unstable parent because they might get hurt. So with that option off the table, you have to find other childcare. And maybe you can't find other childcare, which means you can't go away for the weekend without the kids. You can't do what you want. This is very inconvenient for you. But on the other hand, if you're living in a cloud, you don't see your parents' mental illness. You don't see the damage it does. You don't see the mental illness, so you don't see that you're putting your kids in harm's way when they're with your ill parent. So you feel just fine leaving your kids in that person's care. You get your weekend away. This is very convenient for you. Whenever someone says, "Hey, aren't you afraid your unstable parent will hurt your kids?" you respond with, "What unstable parent? My parents are fine. They take good care of my kids." This is what I mean by living in a cloud or living fully awake. Are you willing to look at the reality of your life and the people in it? Or do you choose to sugarcoat everything and pretend that everyone and everything in your life is just fine? Some kids actually wake up in their childhood. They're taught not to lie, but then they're confused because they see the adults in their lives lie all the time. Kids who live in a cloud don't notice the adults in their lives lying. If you want to improve your self-confidence and self-esteem, you have to take an honest look at the reality of your life. Does someone close to you have a mental illness or addiction of some sort? Do they have trouble managing their anger? Are they verbally or physically violent? Are they excessively manipulative? There are a lot of people in this world who live their whole lives in the cloud. They refuse to see their own reality. Then they're actually surprised when something goes bad because they didn't see it coming. And they didn't see it coming because they weren't paying any attention. Instead, they were sugarcoating things, pretending everything was fine. Because that is a lot easier and a lot more comfortable than the actual truth. These are the people who seem to always have bad things happening to them. Is it really bad luck? Maybe. Or maybe they're just not paying any attention to where they're going in life. They're just bobbling along, assuming everything will be just fine. Then they're surprised when something bad happens to them. But if you're awake in your life, if you're living your life consciously, you admit the shortcomings of those people in your life. Maybe you continue your relationship with them anyway, but you don't pretend these faults aren't there. If your wife has an anger problem, you don't pretend she doesn't. You admit it and accept it, and then maybe try to do something about it. But what's most important here is admitting it and accepting it. If you're awake in your life, you're thinking and speaking for yourself. You're not just repeating what you heard on the news or what your neighbor said. You are assessing situations for yourself and developing your own opinions toward them. You're speaking your own truths. Sure, we get our information from others, but then if we're awake in our lives, we're processing this information on our own, in our own minds, for ourselves. We're not just repeating what we were taught, whether it be by our parents or teachers or political or religious leaders. We're thinking about things and drawing our own conclusions. This is a very important part of living your life consciously. Now, if you're awake in your life, but everyone else in your family is living in a cloud, you're seeing realities that they refuse to. So you're not seeing eye to eye. The realities that you see threaten their illusion. This might make them very uncomfortable with you, because you're pointing out realities that they have very successfully hidden from for a long time. They don't want to see these realities. These realities are very uncomfortable and very inconvenient to the version of reality that they've constructed for themselves. So what I'm getting at here is that it's very possible that your family will alienate you if you're awake and they're living in a cloud. This is actually more common than you might think. You see, if you're going to represent uncomfortable truths, then cutting you out of their lives is a lot easier for them than accepting you with the uncomfortable truths that you represent. Of course, this is a sad outcome, but it's also no reason to sacrifice yourself. If you have to choose between succumbing to their illusion or holding fast to your truth, you should always choose your truth. Self-respect demands this, and you cannot build strong self-confidence if you're lying to yourself. So pay attention in your life. Look under the surface just a little. What are the areas to watch out for? Also, think about the things that people have taught you and the information you've received. Actually think about it on your own. Use your brain and develop your own insights and perspectives. Don't just follow the crowd because everyone else does. Think.